Most of your life will be lived in places you never physically stand, yesterday and tomorrow. That is the uncomfortable truth. We call it thinking, we call it planning, we call it being responsible, but much of it is a quiet absence that passes for living. Here is the promise. If you stay with me, you will learn why the mind refuses to inhabit the present, how this refusal is tied to fear and the illusion of control, and how to return, without forcing calm, without romanticizing simplicity, into a steadier kind of attention that can survive modern life. Not a performance of mindfulness, but a form of inner freedom. The first shift is this: we assume we are not present because life is too fast. Yet the deeper problem is that the mind is not built to be present by default. It is built to protect and predict. The present is where reality happens, and reality contains uncertainty. Uncertainty is the one thing the anxious mind cannot negotiate with, so it tries to leave. If you watch yourself honestly, you will notice it. Even in a quiet room, with nothing demanding you, the mind reaches for a problem, a regret, a rehearsal. It is not always because you are distracted. It is often because you are afraid. And fear is not only panic. Fear is subtle. It can wear the dignified face of preparation. Consider how quickly a peaceful moment becomes a mental transaction. You sit down to eat and you are already bargaining with the next hour. You walk outside and you are measuring the day against the version you hoped it would be. You read a message and your stomach tightens, not because anything has happened, but because you have traveled forward to a scene that does not exist yet. Your body remains in the room while your attention is elsewhere, and then you wonder why life feels thin. The next shift is sharper. The past and future feel safer than the present, not because they are pleasant, but because they are controllable in imagination. The present does not bend. It demands contact. It insists on being seen as it is. And seeing as it is, that is where pain, disappointment, and humility often wait. Stoic philosophers were not interested in escapism. They were interested in reality as a discipline. Epictetus did not say, "Think happy thoughts." He said, in essence, know what is yours to command. The present is the only door through which what is yours to command can enter. Your judgments, your choices, your character. Everything else, other people, outcomes, timing, the body's moods, the world's chaos, belongs to a wider order. And here is the hard truth hidden beneath modern business. We are rarely present because being present threatens the stories we tell about ourselves. In the future, we are competent, admired, finally at peace. In the past, we are either justified or wronged. In the present, we are simply human, unfinished, uncertain, sometimes ordinary, sometimes aching. Many people would rather be impressive in imagination than sincere in reality. Notice the mind's favorite trick. It uses thought to avoid feeling. It calls it analysis, but it is often anesthesia. When grief approaches, you plan. When loneliness speaks, you scroll. When shame rises, you start improving yourself at high speed. You become a project so you do not have to be a person. Look at a modern example that seems harmless, the way we film our own lives. You are at a concert, and the performance is not in your ears, it is in your phone. You are at dinner, and the conversation is not in your attention, it is in the possibility of posting. This is not merely vanity. It is a desperate attempt to secure the moment by turning it into proof. Yet the moment you try to secure it, you stop inhabiting it. You trade experience for evidence. Another shift. We think presence means intensity, a kind of glowing awareness. But presence is often plain. It is not fireworks. It is the ability to stay with what is, including the parts that do not flatter you. Presence is not the absence of anxiety. It is the refusal to let anxiety decide where you live. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself not because he was naturally calm, but because he was human and easily pulled away. He knew what we forget. The mind is impressionable. It believes the first story it hears. The present arrives, and the mind immediately labels it. Good, bad, dangerous, boring, beneath me, not enough. Then it reacts to the label, not to reality. This is why we can be in a safe room and feel threatened, or be in a beautiful day and feel dissatisfied. The present is not the jailer. Our judgments are. Here is a hard truth that tastes like medicine. Your life is not made of days. It is made of the few moments you truly meet. Most days are spent half elsewhere, and then we ask why time accelerates. Time does not accelerate. Attention dissolves. Reflection changes the direction. If presence were merely a skill, the solution would be simple. But presence is also a moral choice. It asks, will you meet the truth, even when it costs you a comforting illusion? Because the present will eventually ask for that payment. It will ask you to accept that someone you love will not always be here, that your body is changing, that your plans might fail, that you cannot negotiate with mortality. The mind escapes because it senses these truths waiting behind ordinary moments. A practical example: think about the last time you received criticism. Even mild feedback can throw you out of the room. You become the future version of yourself defending your reputation. Or you become the past version of yourself collecting evidence that you were always competent. Meanwhile, the real opportunity, the present opportunity, is to listen, to choose humility or defensiveness, to decide what kind of person you will be under pressure. The present is where character is formed, which is why it is uncomfortable. Another shift. We often blame technology for our absence, but technology is only a mirror. It amplifies what the mind already wants, to be elsewhere. The deeper cause is the craving for control. The present is the one place you cannot control by thinking. You can only participate. And participation requires vulnerability. So what do we do? Not by violently forcing the mind into silence. That is another form of control, and it usually backfires. Stoicism offers a calmer approach. Begin with the distinction between what depends on you and what does not, and then practice returning your attention to what depends on you, one small choice at a time. The goal is not to feel serene. The goal is to be internally governed. Let this be the next hard truth. You cannot be present while demanding certainty. The demand itself is an exile. If you insist on knowing how things will turn out, you will live in the future. If you insist that the past should have been different, you will live in the past. Presence requires a quieter courage, the willingness to stand in the middle of not knowing and still act with integrity. You can test this immediately in modern life. The next time you are stuck in traffic, notice the mind's reflex. It turns the present into an enemy, as if the road has personally offended you. But the Stoic move is simple. Separate the event from the judgment. The event is, cars are not moving. The judgment is, this should not be happening. My time is being stolen. This ruins everything. Remove the judgment, and you do not become delighted. You become free. You can breathe. You can choose patience. You can even choose gratitude for the chance to practice mastery. The final shift before we cross into the second half of this journey is this: presence is not a retreat from ambition. It is the only way ambition becomes clean. Without presence, ambition becomes hunger, and hunger is never satisfied. With presence, you can pursue goals without sacrificing your life to them. If this is resonating, I invite you to subscribe and to leave a thoughtful comment about where your mind goes when it refuses the present. Not to confess, not to perform, just to name it, clearly, as a way of reclaiming a little attention. And now we move forward, not by adding more ideas, but by changing our relationship to the ones we already carry. The next hard truth is quieter but more decisive. You are never truly present because you do not fully accept that the present is all you will ever have. We speak about the future as if it is owed to us. We treat tomorrow like property. But tomorrow is not promised, and the mind senses that. It tries to outrun the fragility by accumulating plans, achievements, and distractions, as if speed could cancel impermanence. The reversal is this: the mind's refusal to be present is not only weakness, it is also a misdirected attempt at self-preservation. It leaves the present because the present reminds you that everything can be lost. Yet the strange grace is that once you accept this, the present becomes less threatening. Mortality, faced honestly, does not necessarily produce despair. It can produce precision. It makes you choose your words more carefully. It makes you listen as if listening matters, because it does. Stoicism does not ask you to be numb. It asks you to be accurate. Anxiety is often inaccurate attention. It floods the mind with imagined catastrophes and calls it realism. But realism is not the same as pessimism. Realism is simply seeing what is within your control. Your effort, your honesty, your restraint, your courage. These remain available in almost any circumstance. When the mind remembers this, it has less reason to flee. The present becomes workable. A practical example: think of a difficult conversation you have been postponing. You replay it at night, you draft it in the shower, you rehearse it while pretending to read. This is the future masquerading as responsibility. The present task is smaller and more honorable: to choose a time, to speak with respect, to accept that you cannot control how it lands. The Stoic is not someone who predicts perfectly. The Stoic is someone who acts cleanly without demanding control over the result. Here is a hard truth that many avoid. The greatest thief of presence is not distraction, but self-importance. When you are overly concerned with how you are perceived, you cannot remain in the moment, because the moment is not a stage designed to confirm your identity. You become a curator of impressions. You monitor your tone, your posture, your status. You live in the eyes of others, which is always a future tense. What will they think? How will this look? Did I perform well? The shift is liberating. Humility is not humiliation, it is presence. To be humble is to be in proportion with reality. You can pay attention when you are not constantly defending a self-image. This is why certain simple moments, washing dishes, walking, sitting quietly, can feel like relief. Not because they are exciting, but because they temporarily suspend the demand to be someone. Modern life makes this hard because it monopolizes your attention and flatters your urgency. Every notification implies that the present should be interrupted. Every feed suggests that somewhere else is more important. But the deeper discipline is internal, learning to pause between stimulus and response. That pause is the doorway back to the present. Not a dramatic pause. A clean one. Try this in a real moment. When you feel the impulse to check your phone, do not moralize it. Just name the impulse. I want to leave this moment. That single sentence can be revolutionary because it reveals what is happening. Often, the impulse is not boredom. It is a small discomfort, uncertainty, restlessness, a fear of missing out, a fear of being alone with your own mind. If you can tolerate the discomfort for 10 breaths, you are already training freedom. Here is another hard truth. You will not become present by collecting more techniques. Techniques can help, but they can also become another place to hide. The question is not, how do I optimize my awareness? The question is, what am I refusing to feel, and what truth am I refusing to accept? Presence is less about method and more about honesty. The reversal now, the present is not only a moment, it is a verdict. It tells you, right now, who you are becoming. Not who you say you are, not who you plan to be, but who you are when no one is watching and nothing is guaranteed. That can be terrifying, because it removes excuses. But it can also be healing, because it returns power to you. If your life is shaped by small choices, then small choices can reshape it. A practical example, you promised yourself you would take care of your body, but you wait for motivation. Motivation is a future fantasy. The present is simpler. Drink water, take a walk, prepare one honest meal, go to sleep when you are able. These are not glamorous acts. They are acts of self-respect. When done with attention, they rebuild trust in yourself. And trust is one of the quiet foundations of inner peace. Stoic wisdom is often misunderstood as cold endurance. In truth, it is warm clarity. It says, do not add suffering with your interpretations. Pain may arrive, loss, illness, failure, humiliation, but your mind does not need to manufacture a second wound. The present contains the first wound. Your stories create the second. When you reduce the second, you do not become invincible. You become less scattered. You become able to meet life without constant collapse. Another shift. We assume inner peace is a feeling, but it is more reliably a stance. Inner peace is the decision to stop fighting reality where you cannot change it, and to start applying yourself where you can. It is the steadiness that comes when you stop demanding that the world cooperate with your preferences before you allow yourself to be decent, calm, or brave. Consider failure, which is one of the strongest engines of future living. After a failure, the mind either runs forward to redemption or backward to regret. Both are forms of avoiding the present shame. But shame, approached with honesty, can become instruction rather than imprisonment. The present question is not, how do I erase this? But, what does this reveal about my priorities, my habits, my attachments? This is how pain becomes wisdom instead of bitterness. A modern example. You send an email and wait. The waiting feels intolerable. So you refresh, you check, you imagine the person judging you. But none of that is action. The Stoic practice is almost boring in its simplicity. Return to your task. The outcome is not yours. Your conduct is. And the more you train this, the less hostage you become to invisible verdicts. Now the deepest reversal. Being present is not about squeezing the most pleasure out of the moment. It is about meeting the moment as the place where you practice virtue. When the present becomes a training ground for courage, patience, justice, and temperance, It stops being a fragile bubble you must protect. It becomes something you can stand in, even when it is windy. And this is why we are never truly present, because presence would require a certain kind of integrity. You cannot be present and dishonest at the same time. If you are lying to yourself, you must keep moving, because stillness would expose you. Presence asks for alignment. It asks you to stop pretending you do not know what you know. So the practical return is not dramatic. It is quiet. When you notice you are elsewhere, do not insult yourself. Just come back to what is in front of you. One breath. One sentence spoken carefully. One choice made without theatrics. Ask, what is required of me, right now, if I want to respect myself? Not what is impressive. Not what is safe. What is required? If you do this long enough, you begin to realize something almost unsettling. The present is not a small slice of time between two anxieties. The present is the only place where freedom is not imaginary. The past cannot be entered. The future cannot be grasped. But this moment can be lived with dignity. And when you finally begin to live it, not perfectly but sincerely, you stop searching for a different life to escape into. You start meeting the one you have. You do not need a louder mind. You need a truer one. The moment you stop trying to outrun your life is the moment your life begins to catch up to you.